Do you think the West is getting better or worse? I'm really starting to understand why many foreigners are looking at the Philippines as a possible place to relocate permanently. Happiness, peace, and a better quality of life. Canada was where I live, and it's not even like the most expensive area to live in, was 3 times the price of a city like Davao. You see people there, they're in the slums. It's like they're happy, they're smiling, they're grateful to have a meal, right? When you're comparing women in the West to women in the Philippines, it's like night and day difference. To find a 20-year-old girl here or a 24-year-old girl here that hasn't slept with a ton of guys, it's going to be probably pretty hard. I'm leaving in January when it's going to be freezing cold here, probably a few feet of snow in Canada, and I'm going to be going to a beautiful tropical paradise. So I haven't been to the Philippines yet, but in less than 5 weeks, I'll finally be making that trip. And after months of watching endless YouTube videos, researching, looking up what the Philippines is all about online, I'm really starting to understand why many foreigners are looking at the Philippines as a possible place to relocate permanently. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Legend of Master Sexy YouTube channel. For those of you that are new here, welcome. For returning viewers, welcome also. Appreciate the support from everybody. I've spent months researching the Philippines, watching YouTube videos, asking ChatGPT questions on the country. I've been asking people that I work with questions on the country that are from there to learn as much as I possibly could before making the trip there. And the more I learn, the more I understand why a lot of foreigners from Canada, US, Europe, wherever are deciding to relocate to the Philippines. All right, guys, but before we get into this, also don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends, share this with your family if you think that they'll get some value from it. Also, let me know your thoughts, maybe your reasons for wanting to move to the Philippines or other people's reasons that you know on why they've relocated to the Philippines as well, down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, let's get into it. All right, let's talk about the number one reason most foreigners want to relocate to the Philippines, and that's the dating scene, obviously. We hear it from many expats all the time, the women are just different there. So when you're comparing women in the West to women in the Philippines, it's like night and day difference. So I've talked to plenty of women on the online dating sites. Even though I haven't met them in person yet, I would say there is a huge difference in their attitude, that is for sure. So overall, one thing that I've noticed is a lot of them are very grateful for what they have. They're very family oriented. Western women feel entitled to everything, at least, and I'm generalizing here. There are some good women here still, but the women that I've found that are really good in the Philippines that I've talked to, that have a really good attitude, really positive about life, really grateful, those women really outshine the good women here that I've found. Like, the good women here are very, very, very rare, very hard to find. So that is obviously one reason that is very appealing. Also, you cannot live in Canada, US, and not be affected by your environment. So they all have this westernized mindset, right? So, there are some traditional women here. Usually they'll be more religious, whatever. But in general, to find a traditional woman in Canada, who wants to be more submissive, who wants to cook, clean, take care of her man, take care of her family, puts her family before herself in a lot of cases, going to be very hard to find in Canada. Going to be a lot easier to find somewhere like the Philippines, just based on all the research I've done. People can say what they want, but that is my opinion. For example, I watch the one YouTuber, Pro-Life Traveler, and one thing he said, I watched a recent video of his. It's not a recent video, it's an older video, but one thing that he was saying was he asked his wife if she had 3,000 pesos, which, if you're going to compare that, that's like 75 bucks Canadian. How would she spend that money, right? If she could spend it on anything that she wanted, how would she spend it? And she said that she would buy groceries for her family, right? So it seems like they're more giving, more caring, more generous in that regard. Where women here, they would take that money, they would put it in their bank account, and they would save it for, you know, when they can buy something more expensive. Not always, but you know, most of the time. So the mindset is different. I do think that is one of the reasons a lot of men are looking at the Philippines as a viable option for them. For me personally, you know, I do not want to date a Canadian girl. Just the attitude, the mindset. Like I said, I have met some nice girls here. The other thing too that people don't probably talk a lot about, or they might talk a lot about, is women here are very promiscuous. So obviously there are the city girls in the Philippines I've heard of that are obviously the same. They're more kind of westernized. But, you know, to find a 20-year-old girl here or a 24-year-old girl here that hasn't slept with a ton of guys, it's going to be probably pretty hard. For example, me and my friend, the boss, we hung out with some people like a while back, and the one girl told us, like, she told us her body count, and she was 24, and I think she slept with 46 guys, which to me, that is absolutely crazy for a 24-year-old to have slept with 46 guys. So, you know, to each their own. I'm not here to judge them, but I don't want to be with a woman that's been with 47, 46, however many guys, that many guys before me. So to me, it's like, I want a woman that has a little bit more self-respect, but that's my personal opinion on that. So the other thing is too about, you know, dating women here, like a lot of times they don't appreciate when you do nice things for them. Or, you know, the other thing about dating women here is a lot of times like things aren't really appreciated or reciprocated, right? So obviously in that scenario, you don't want to be a chimpanzee. You don't want to, if it's not reciprocated, then you want to leave the relationship, right? And you don't want to stick around too long, right? But the here, like, let's say you do something nice for your girl, like it really isn't appreciated that much. I'm gonna go back to Pro Life Traveler. You look at his videos, you know, he'll bring his wife home stuff like food, or some snacks or something, like something simple like that, where, you know, like that's kind of expected here, and you don't really get like a thank you. She gets so if you watch his videos, she gets so excited, and when he comes home, you can just see it in her eyes. She is so excited to see her husband. Not saying it doesn't happen here. Like, this is just my observations, but in my opinion, I've seen people in relationships here. It happens. They're not like that together. So they're like a good example of what I've seen. It's like, okay, that looks like a healthy relationship, and that's something that I think people should strive for. So I do think that is one of the appealing things as well. It's just there's so many different things. Like, some of the best women I've talked to, just personality wise, have been from the Philippines, like by far. It's not even comparable. All right, guys, enough about the dating stuff. I think we're going to get into number 2 now, which obviously is the cost of living difference. So I did do another video if you want to check that out on the cost of living. I compared 3 different places, a city near where I live in Canada, compared to what I looked up on ChatGPT was the most expensive city, Makati, in the Philippines. Whether that's true or not, that's up for debate. And then Davao, kind of not a super expensive city, but kind of like mid-level range, I guess. And I compared those prices. So, and the numbers were pretty crazy. Like, Canada was where I live, and it's not even like the most expensive area to live in, was 3 times the price of a city like Davao, and about, it was, 3 times the price, and it wasn't 2 times the price in Makati. But it was still like, Makati was like 2/3 of the cost of Canada, where I'm at currently. So pretty crazy to see those numbers. But I'm going to go back to Pro Life Traveler again. I was watching a vlog of his, and some of the places he goes to eat, he would go to this place for like burgers, and they would be like a chili cheeseburger. I think it had like hot chili sauce on it or something, a burger, an egg, and they were like $1 Canadian. I think it was like 40 pesos or something. So I'm like, where are you going to get that in Canada? It's just not going to happen. And then if you do the math on that, it's not the healthiest way to eat, but like, let's say you wanted to eat really, really cheap there. You could not even cook. You could get 3 of those burgers a day, one for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That would cost you $3 a day. That's $90 a month. Good luck eating like that here. You might be able to get some, some chicken noodle soup at the dollar store, and you'll probably still pay more than that. You'll probably pay like $2 for a can or something. And you can eat, your cost is still going to be double that, probably be like $180 a month. So, the food is insane here. Just everything. Rent, 1-bedroom apartment where I live, $1,800 you're probably looking at. I did a budget for Davao. I could live pretty comfortably off $1,800, everything included, not just an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment. And I probably have a much nicer place as well. So yeah, I think that is obviously another reason why a lot of people are moving. It's not the primary reason why I want to move to the Philippines, but it's just another thing. It's like another reason. These reasons, I go through 5 of them. They're kind of all little reasons why it just makes it more and more appealing. So number 1, obviously the women, the different mindset, attitude. Number 2, cost of living. But this isn't like the primary one for me. Okay, but it is still, it's like a bonus. It's like, okay, if I can save an extra $2,000 a month, that's huge. Another thing to add to that, like the purchasing power. Like if you make $10K a month here, if it's a third of the cost there, if it's 3 times more expensive here, if you think about that, okay, well, if I make $10K there, that's like making $30K there. Like, so it's like you just went, like if you made $333,000 a year and you went to the Philippines, it'd be like making $1 million. That's pretty insane when you think about it. So big difference in cost, that's for sure. All right, number 3, Western culture just feels cold compared to the Filipino culture. From what I've seen in videos, from what I've heard, they have a very welcoming culture, very family oriented, very kind, caring. Not all of them, obviously. Not all people, you're going to get good and bad everywhere. But they definitely value different things compared to Canadian culture. People here are very impatient, very entitled a lot of times. Obviously, there's the exception. Like I try to, keep myself in check, stay grateful, stay humble about things, and, always have that gratitude, right? But some people, they'll complain. They just are never happy. They're never content. Obviously, there's things here I'm not happy about. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video. But I'm still very grateful for my life. I'm very grateful for everything I do have here. I try to focus on the positive. But at the same time, I like to point out the reasons why. For the sake of the video and for this, the reasons I want to move there, I want to point out these reasons. So, yeah, I like the idea of, being part of a community, being more family oriented. Like here, for example, I'm single, I live alone, I do have family, but like I'm not super close with them. They all have their own families. So for me, it's like they're all living their own lives, right? And that's okay. Like I understand that. But when I've talked to other girls from there, there's like the grandparents are at the house, the aunts and uncles are there, the cousins are there. When I think back to like when I was growing up in the 90s, I was born in 91. I'm 34, by the way. I've never actually said that on the channel, but I'm 34 years old. And when I grew up in the 90s, I just remember my cousins always being around. The technology wasn't like there yet, right? So the internet, I think, came out in the late 90s or something. So it was kind of like it was more simple, but it was like more family. You would spend a lot more time with your family, Your parents, when they were hanging out, they weren't on cell phones. Nobody had cell phones. They were all just, drinking, playing cards, listening to music. And I feel like you get, from what I've watched in vlogs, I feel like you get a lot of that in the Philippines, right? So, and then obviously talking to girls, like, they really value their family there. So, like, people think they obviously money's important to everybody, but they think they value that over everything. I actually think they value their family over everything. That's my opinion. You can disagree or agree. It really makes no difference. But yeah, that's just what I see from talking to them. So I want to be somewhere where people are positive. Like, to think as well, like, people here, you know, they have all this opportunity to make money, do whatever, but it doesn't make them any happier. So you see people there, they're in the slums. It's like they're happy, they're smiling, they're grateful to have a meal. So for me, it's like those simple things like that people are grateful for. It's just very appealing to me. I could go there, I could help people out in what seems like the smallest way to me, and it could make a huge difference for people too. So, you know, like, that's another reason I like to hire people out of the Philippines as well, because they're so grateful for their jobs and they do an amazing job because, you know, I treat them well, but they're also, you know, they deserve to be treated well because they do an amazing job too. So that is another reason I think people, foreigners actually want to move to the Philippines. All right, number 4. This one is probably one of the main reasons I want to move there, and that is the tropical weather and the island lifestyle. So for me, living in Canada, you know, every winter, even right now, I'm doing this video in my car. I was gonna go for a walk and do it, but it is getting cold out. We are like -4 Celsius here today. I was supposed to get snow tonight, and I'm just like, I did not want to go out and walk in this right now, if I'm being honest. So I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot this one in my car. But I am done with winters. Like, I would love to come back to Canada for like 6 months or like 3 months in the summer. It's beautiful here in the summer. I'm not a fan of the cold at all, and that's something I can't change here. So the only way I could change that is to go somewhere where it's tropical, you know. And I do understand the Philippines has their rainy season. Realistically, I could come back for a month or 2 to Canada during that time, but even during the rainy season, I don't mind the rain. It's the cold weather. And I actually looked it up, how many days, it depends on where you are in the Philippines, but how many days of the year, like or in a month, do you usually get rain during the rainy season in a place like Davao or Manila? I think Davao, it said like 10 to 15 days a month. So if you think about that, you might get rain every other day or every third day, but ultimately the other days probably going to get some sunshine or at least no rain. Might be cloudy, but you can go out and still do things, not super cold. So obviously there's the exception to that where, you know, there's a lot of typhoons, stuff like that. But I know certain areas, from what I've looked up, apparently Palawan isn't as bad for that. So when I do my 30-day trip, I'm going to discover some different places, and I'm going to see where I really like, and then kind of figure out where I'd want to settle down. My goal is to go, obviously I'm going in January for 30 days, but my goal would be to move back by like May or June of 2026. Technically, you're probably saying, well, it's going to be summer here by then. Yeah, it will be, but it's going to be kind of nice. I'm leaving in January when it's going to be freezing cold here, you know, probably a few feet of snow in Canada, and I'm going to be going to a beautiful tropical paradise. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, that is another reason I feel like it is appealing to a lot of people, especially if you don't like the cold like me. I love being outside. I love the sun. I love the heat. Puts you in such a good mood, like that. Summer weather, the heat, the sun, all that stuff. So yeah, I would say that is a pretty appealing reason for a lot of foreigners as well. Number 5, happiness, peace, and a better quality of life. Here, too many people are focused on, you know, all these negative things. And like I said, it has a lot to do with the media, social media, people focusing on those things. Like for me, I'll be honest, you could ask me, oh, what do you think of whatever issues going on in the world right now? And I actually probably would not even be able to answer it, because I'm so focused. I have my purpose in life. I'm so driven and focused on a few things, you know, my health, wealth, relationships. Those are like the 3 pillars for me. So health, going to the gym every day, or like 5 days a week, 6 days a week, trying to go every day. Eating healthy, right? Next thing would be my wealth, right? which this is where like things are kind of backwards for me. I actually think like health should be first, relationship should be second, and wealth should be third. I put wealth second currently because, you know, like I said, I'm a single guy. I live alone anyway, but I obviously have friends and stuff, but I don't, right now my purpose is to do really well in life because I have a goal to retire by the time I'm 40 years old. So, or have the option to retire by the time I'm 40 years old. So, so I'm really driven when it comes to building up my business and making that happen. And that's my purpose, right? And then, well, that's not my only purpose, but it is a pretty big goal of mine. And then obviously relationships, right? So like I said, I have great relationships with my family, but you know, obviously I'm 34. I do want to get to the point where, you know, I end up finding a girl. I have, you know, I can start creating my own family, you know, eventually have kids, stuff like that. Not like in a crazy rush for it, you know, so, but at the same time, having a good woman is very important, making sure that she's the right woman. It's more important than anything. But just the Philippines, I kind of got off topic there, but the pace of life, there's something called, they say Filipino time, where it's a slower pace of life. They say you have to be really patient to go there. In ways, as I'm getting older, I'm getting more patient, but I have heard it is very slow there. But I'm going to respect their culture and be patient with them, and hopefully they, you know, accept me with open arms as well. I think, you know, the way I am, I grew up doing martial arts. If you're new to the channel, this is probably your first time hearing that, but if you've already seen videos, I've mentioned it in other videos, and, you know, doing martial arts, you're always taught to like respect your elders, be respectful to people, exercise restraint, you know, be responsible, stuff like that. At least if you're, you know, you have a good martial arts coach growing up. You know, those are things that I value, which, you know, when I see those things they aren't very common here. Loyalty, like all those things. And then I see that there is a place where they're common that makes it even more appealing to me. And I think a lot of other foreigners see that as well, right? For the people that have a similar mindset to myself, they also see it in that light too. So yeah, those are 5 reasons why I believe foreigners are looking at the Philippines as a possible solution for somewhere to move permanently. So on that note, guys, I want to ask you guys one last question and answer this down in the comments below. Do you think the West is getting better or worse? In my opinion, it's getting worse for so many reasons. I just think back when, you know, like 10 years ago when I was like 20, I was working construction, and I had enough money where I could have put a down payment on a triplex. But the triplex was like $250,000 Canadian, which very, very cheap at the time. Like now looking back, very cheap, but it seemed expensive at the time. This was like not 10 years ago. This would have been, like 14 years ago. So 14-year time period, fast forward. If I were to look at that same triplex now, I'd be lucky if I could get that for $750,000. So the housing cost is insane. Like it's probably tripled in a span of 15 years, which that's just crazy to me, right? So people aren't buying houses. Like it's a struggle here for people to buy houses, right? So to go live somewhere like the Philippines, just once again, another reason to add to the list of all of the really things that are appealing to someone like me and to many other foreigners just like you guys out there too. So yeah, guys, let me know your honest take on this video, on what you guys think. What are your reasons for wanting to leave your country to go to the Philippines? I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Also, if you did get some value from this video, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anybody else that you think might get some value from it. I'm going to be going to the Philippines in less than 5 weeks, so I'm finally almost there. I've been planning this since May, like when am I going to do this thing? Bought my plane ticket probably a month and a half ago, and it's going to be an incredible journey. So I'm very excited for it. Thank you guys for watching, and most of all, don't forget to stay legendary and stay sexy.